Hi, Mary Martha.
And who was that?
Kim.
Hello, Dr. Kroll. How are you?
Good night.
Good. It's good to see you.
Executive, so. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Hello, Mary Martha.
There you go.
Who was that?
Lance.
Hi, Lance. How are you doing?
Trustee Lance. I'm great.
Good, good.
You want to have room? I think so. Okay.
I've got family members that, no, it was asked, yes, no question.
I assume. What's
Any
in the
horse?
horse is just what I know, it doesn't have to go along, it's like, oh, yeah.
You ready? Are we ready?
Oh,
Yeah. You want me to, I can go ahead and read this before we do the call it to order, okay? Can we do that? Yep, okay.
I don't have anyone else in here except for us. You want to do it after executive?
Oh, I can do that. Yeah, yeah, all right, I'll do that.
Just hold up.
I didn't know, yeah, okay.
I'll go ahead and call to order the Butler County Board of Trustees regular board meeting for Tuesday, June 9th, 2020, in the Danker boardroom. We are hooked up, I think, live still, but all the trustees are present and exercising social distance as we should. Don't think we have a really big agenda today, but I've reviewed the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda as it was sent to everyone or stated? There being none, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as stated? So moved.
Second.
Say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. So motion carries. The first order of business we have is to move into executive session. I move that the board recess into executive session for consultation with our legal counsel to include the board, Ray Cannell, legal counsel, and Dr. Kim Kroll. Not to exceed 45 minutes. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, all opposed, same sign.
You should be good.
There being no objection, motion carries. We'll go ahead and move into executive session.
You want that, George?
I'll shut it on my way out.
Oh, Laurel can shut it on.
Okay, I will.
So are we in exec session yet?
Oh, I have to move you there too.
Okay.
Okay, good. Hold on.
Shall we
Be a good napping chair.
do that?
I was more afraid about it flipping over than
No. Sign this release.
Yeah.
Okay, you're good.
Want me to join it?
You should be, yeah, you have to join, yes.
Now we're ready. Okay, can you hear us, Mary Martha, okay? Okay,
Yes, thank you.
okay, I'm gonna start out for our folks that are zooming in and listening live stream. We appreciate your patience as we work through the virtual meeting together, virtual public meeting together. Know you can access the agenda on the college's website. Prior to the start of the meeting, well, let's see, I guess I should have changed this just a little bit. I was gonna say to you, Laura Jarvis and Tevin Manuel are helping with the management of the technology for this meeting, and Laura's taking the official meeting minutes. When we participate in public meeting, we've talked about this before, if folks are listening in by telephone or, you know, through interactive medium and communication, we want to make sure that the board allows the public to understand who's speaking and who's making motions and all of those kinds of things, who's asking questions. And so just a reminder that as you speak or as you ask a question, or if you're getting ready to make a motion or something, that you identify who you are for the public so that they're able to hear. Laura's here tonight because I thought it would be easier for her to take minutes this way, but I think it probably is nice if we still do a roll call vote for folks that are online, and that way they know, you know, who's voting. And so my other information, what's that? Oh, relates to public comment. And I guess I would say anybody that's online, please make sure, anybody that's zooming in, please make sure your microphones are muted. That'll help with any feedback. But regarding public comment, I know we have some public comments on our agenda. You're welcome to address the board under the public comment section of the board meeting agenda. Personnel issues are prohibited from public comment. The public comment portion of the agenda is available for those who've submitted a written request to speak. And those requests came to Laura. She's got a list of folks that have identified that they would like to speak. And so when we get to that, Laura will call those persons' names in turn, and either Laura or Tevin will unmute them and let them speak. Time limit of 4 minutes has been set for each recognized member or spokesperson of the audience to speak to the board. When 3 minutes have elapsed, Laura's going to hold up a little card that says 1 minute left, so you know that you've got a minute left. And then we'll ask you within that final minute to please wrap up your comments so that we can go on to the next audience member, and Laura will announce those names as we go along. Just a reminder that the board will not participate in any discussion or take any action during the public comment period of the board meetings. It will take the matter under deliberation as necessary and if appropriate, and direct the president to follow up with a written response and report or report at the next regular meeting. And so you'll likely hear at the end of public comment when we're done, the chair, Jim, say, thank you, we appreciate your comments, and we'll move on to the next agenda item then. So I just wanted to state that information for those, because I know some are here to offer public comment. Thanks. Me next, recognitions. Are you ready for those?
Yep.
Okay, recognitions. First person I want to recognize is Monica Dobbins. Monica is one of 14 instructors, nursing instructors in the United States to participate in the nursing mentorship program. She's in her first year at Butler as nursing faculty and was selected earlier in 2020 to participate in Kaplan's nursing mentorship program, where mentees are learning and discussing topics such as curriculum development, trends in teaching, overcoming professional challenges, advancement in test preps, and more. Kaplan is the company that provides various products and services to support nursing programs in schools, including some of the practice test examples that our nurses take before they have to take their licensing exams. And so that curriculum helps them prepare for that. They created the mentorship program as an answer to the International Council of Nurses and the World Health Organization's Nursing Now Nightingale Challenge. And so the purpose of this Nightingale Challenge is to help develop the next generation of young nurses and midwives. As part of this nursing mentorship program, Dobbins will be on the front line of learning about new concepts and changes happening in nursing education, as well as in nursing licensure exams, also known as nursing boards. They meet virtually with members of Kaplan Now nursing team each month. And this helps build not only their knowledge, but their networking base. And so we're excited that Monica has been chosen for this program. It's quite an honor when you think of 14 instructors across the nation being chosen. So congratulations, Monica. I don't know if you're online or not, but we're proud of you and we're proud of your impact on our students in our classrooms. So I would accept a round of applause. Thanks. And then our second recognition is for Dr. Isam Mohammed, who you know. Isam just recently was published in Research and Community College Daily. And that's AACC's flagship outlet for information. His research and advocacy piece was related to the economic impact on community colleges in the post-COVID era. And I think maybe when I sent my overview to you guys, I included that article link for you. Did I? Do you remember that? We sent it to you somehow. Maybe I sent it to you in the email. If we didn't send it to you in email, okay. So Isam, congratulations on your great work. You're probably online with us, and we're really proud of the work that you do as well. And on top of that, we just found out Isam's at the KBOR data conference today, and he sent us a text message or email today, and Butler won the 2020 Data Quality Award. Again, it's the second time I think we won it 4 or 5 years ago, and so we've won it again, and it's about the quality of the data, getting things in on time, the reporting, all those kinds of things. So we have a great team at Butler that does that for us, and so under Isam's leadership. That's all I have for recognitions.
Okay, move on to the next agenda item, and that is public comment.
Okay, so the first one I see in the waiting room is Jennifer McAllister, so I'm going to admit her into the meeting.
And let's have, when they come in, let's have the folks introduce themselves and tell us, you know, if they're from El Dorado, or would you need that information for public comment anyway?
I have it on the form. that
Oh,
you
okay,
know.
good, thanks. Sorry,
That's okay.
I'll be quiet. She's connecting?
Are folks that are on public comment, are they watching the meeting live but just can't
That's what I
participate?
recommended to them, is that they watch on VCTV, you know, and then I would let them know when they were in the meeting.
Laura,
Yes.
could you go ahead and list where they're from, please? Who they are and where they're from?
Jennifer is from El Dorado.
Okay.
Jennifer, are you there? Jennifer, we can't hear you.
She might need to know there's a button in the corner somewhere that says.
Okay, Jennifer, you muted yourself, so if you push that button one more time, you should be unmuted. Let me unmute you. I'm gonna go ahead, the second person is Susan Dick, so I'm gonna go ahead and get her ready to come in as well. And Susan is also from El Dorado.
Is Jennifer still trying to connect?
She's.
Oh, I see her.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not
I just
sure.
can't hear.
Yeah. Jennifer, can you try one more time to unmute yourself? We still can't hear you. Susan, I let you in, but if you can just hold on, we're waiting for Jennifer to do hers, and then you'll be up for your public comment. I don't think Jennifer's gonna.
Why don't we come back to Jennifer? Go
Okay.
ahead and let Susan speak,
Okay.
and then we'll try and loop back to, oh, there she is. Jennifer just got unmuted, it looks like, maybe.
Are you there, Jennifer?
Do they have a number to call in as well?
Let me.
Showed she had her phone like she was, maybe what she had done.
Jennifer, I'm gonna send you an email with the telephone number to call because you're not connecting with us right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove you from the meeting and then give you a phone number to call, okay?
Let Susan speak.
And Susan, you have 4 minutes for your public comment. If you want to unmute yourself, Susan.
There
Can you
go.
hear me?
Yes, now we can.
We can hear you, Susan. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, my name is Susan Dick. I'm from El Dorado. I was kind of hoping Katie would speak first. But I'm just kind of with the group of, we're trying to see about the whole Educare issue. And see what we can do to resolve that, to keep that running. There's a lot of concerned parents out there with the fact that the parents had no say in it, and just how it was done. And to me, I feel, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I used to work at Butler. Butler's family to me. Educare is very near and dear to my heart. I did have my son there for the first year and a half of his life, and I got pregnant again. So then I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. But I don't know. I would just like to see that revisited, and to get more, for the parents to be able to get more say, and see how we can get this resolved to be able to still use it. It's a great facility. As a mother of a kid that has been at Educare, it was nothing but positive. I have nothing but positive things about Educare. And I really feel like that is a service to the community, to the county, that has been shut down, and it's gonna hurt. Educare was one of the best, is the best facility in town, I feel like, for our community. And I really feel like we need to see how we can resolve this to keep it open. There's a lot of employees I know that lost their jobs, that, now what do they do? Even if some of those employees come in and still run it, maybe outside of Butler, but still keep it going. I don't know. There's just a lot of, if Katie could talk, I don't know if she's talked yet, but we have a petition of over 1,000 people that signed to support Educare. And so anyway, I really don't have much more to say. I was really hoping I could just have that Katie, she's been kind of the one to get all the details and everything. If you could just make sure that Katie can talk, that'd be great. But like I said, I'm an ex-parent, but if I do find work, I would plan on using Educare again. And so I would just really like to see that revisited, and maybe done a little differently, how they went to shut down, and maybe to see them stay open. And so, yeah, if we could get Katie to be able to talk, like I said, she's kind of been the guru of the Save Educare petition out there. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Susan, do you know if Katie would have a different username than the one she sent me? I have a Z Wall. Is that possibly her?
It could be. I'm not for sure. Yeah, I'm not for sure.
Okay, well, I can admit that one and check and see if that's who it is.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's her last name is spelled W-O-H-L, so that may be her.
I'm not for sure.
Yeah, that's right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm not for sure.
Okay, well, I can admit that one and check and see if that's who it is.
Okay,
Katie,
that'd be great.
are you Here now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Her last name is spelled W-O-H-L, so that may be her.
Katie, we're getting her YouTube sound, so if you could just mute that.
Can you hear me?
I'm not for sure.
Okay, well, I can get that one in,
Can you hear me?
Can you speak up a little louder?
Yeah, sure, of course. Is that better?
That's better.
All right. Hi, I'm Katie. I'm from Towanda. I have 3 children. 2 of them were at Educare and one of them has been on the waiting list for 18 months now. So I want to say thank you for this opportunity. I come here today as the voice of so many heartbroken teachers, families, and sweet children. Many of you have likely read about or heard the community speaking this week with high regard for the Educare program. Some of you have taken phone calls and listened to the heartbreak in a parent's voice as they pleaded with you for answers as to why their daycare was unexpectedly ripped from them. I know I've made several of those phone calls myself. As I struggled to understand, I immediately began reflecting on the value Educare has added to our family's life. This is the place where our kids learn to be better communicators. They learned manners and kindness, and they made their first friends. They laughed and cried, and they created so many memories I will never know about. These teachers were helping us raise our children. You see, it takes a village, and these teachers, they were our tribe. As a mom, these women supported me. They gave me a safe place to send my children and loved our kids for who they are, all while encouraging them to be the best versions of themselves. How can I possibly ever thank them? I know I'm a better mom, wife, and employee because of these teachers and because of the Educare program. I'd like to ask you to reconsider, to ask for a probationary period, to seek out donors and grant funding. I'd ask that a parent committee be formed and that we work with the administrators to keep this program open. Is it possible that there are private donors out there willing to support a program that so deeply affects our community and our youth and our future? I know Dr. Kroll called on a couple of grants, but there are others out there that maybe haven't been investigated yet. Educare exists to serve the students, the faculty, and the community. Butler's been receiving the over 100 grand in the C campus to help low-income parents who attend Butler, give them financial assistance at Educare, a service for Butler students that promotes the academic success for both the parent and the child. The Learning Lab wasn't designed to be a profit center. These children are our next generation. This is important. The research shows that 90% of a child's brain develops before the age of 5. This means the people that care for those children shape their minds. This is important. Children who receive quality care enter school with better math, language, and social skills. When babies get a good start, their chances for success increase exponentially. This is important. Employers, communities, and the nation as a whole benefit from a high-quality childcare. Fostering a healthy, successful future workforce is essential to everyone's well-being. This is important. Programs like Educare can be the bridge between failure and success for so many kids. It seems like you all are invested in education and children's futures, so give us a chance to run this out and make it work. You know our community is better with Educare, and these teachers and those kids in our community deserve all of your effort.
Thank you. The next is Brianna Salinas, and I'm admitting her now.
did we ever get Jessica figured out?
And Tevin was working on
Okay.
Where's Brianna from?
What's Gianna's last name again, please?
it. Salinas,
Salinas. And she's from?
she is from El Dorado. Brianna, if you want to unmute yourself, you'll have 4 minutes for your public comment as well.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. First, I want to thank you guys for the opportunity for me to speak for my comments for Educare. I'm one of the students at Butler Community College. I'm also a parent. My son, Terry Jones, went to Educare for about 2 years now. I'll be finishing Butler in the fall semester. And I absolutely love Butler, all my teachers, my professors there. And it's just really sad that this has come to an end. And I just wanted to thank all the staff at Educare for all their hard work. I'm from El Dorado, Kansas, by the way. And my son, he's about to be 3 years old, and he loved Educare, and that was just his second home. And I'm a single parent, and I had nowhere else to go. As soon as I started at Butler, I believe Dr. Kroll, I attended a meeting, and it was my first semester there at Butler. And I attended that meeting, and I bring to her attention that I really needed a daycare facility for my son, and she told me that they had a great program, Educare. And so I signed up, and I even got free daycare at that point, and it helped me, and I was able to do homework. I was able to study in the math lab. I was able to pass all my classes with straight A's. I'm in the Phi Theta Kappa. I never believed that I could ever do that. And with the help with Educare and their amazing staff, I was able to do that because they were able to help me with my son. And I have 2 children, one 10-year-old and one 3-year-old. And I just wanted to say that Educare has helped me a lot throughout my process here at Butler. So that was just a comment that I'd like to place on today's meeting.
Thank you. And,
I see Karina.
yeah, and Karina Watts is up next, so just unmute yourself and you are ready to go.
Okay, are we good?
Yes.
Okay. So my name is Karina Watts. My daughter is 5 and she's getting ready to start kindergarten in the fall. She started Educare when she was 2 years old and has blossomed into an amazing, sweet, kind, and smart little girl. And I owe a lot of that to the staff and the Educare program. In my mind, I see Educare as a facility that invests in the future by the little kids that attend and Butler students who go through their practicum in the early childhood program to help mold the young minds, and also other students who are attending Butler in different programs who are able to put their kids in Educare so they can make better lives for themselves and their families. Throughout Skylar's time at Educare, I've come across at least 4 other mothers attending the nursing program, and there are probably more that are utilizing the Child Care Access Means Parents in School grant, the C-Campus grant. You know, this helps them be able to go to school and get their degree, have a better career, and when they're done, but all the while giving their child the quality childcare and education that Educare offers. And there's no other place like this in El Dorado. I feel as an Educare parent that the communication with what was going on with this amazing facility was not relayed. We were receiving surveys almost weekly as to when the program was going to open and when we could come back. And before we knew it, we received news that the facility was closing. I feel that if the parents could have been more involved, or if there was a parent committee in place, that we could have helped this not happen. I know that with COVID and all the crazy that is going on in the world, that things are especially tough. My question is, why didn't we fight harder to keep this program when we knew it was going to affect so many individuals? And why didn't we take the time to think outside the box to try and find a way to keep this unique program going for the sake of our kids and Butler students? Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Next is Tasha. Tillman, and she's still trying to connect.
What's the name? Natasha, what?
Tillman, Tillman. And all of these individuals submitted a form, and if you would like to have their names, I can forward them to you.
Yeah, good. Thanks. We did lose that first lady. Did she ever get a phone number for us?
I sent it to her by email and in chat, and I still haven't heard.
Am I in?
Yes, but you are Miss Melissa, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll go with you. Natasha's still trying to connect, so this
Okay.
is actually Finkel, I believe.
Okay, not a problem.
You can go ahead and give us your 4 minutes, Melissa.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
You start now. You can give us
Okay.
your public.
Okay. So good evening. My name is Melissa Schinkel, and I want to thank the board for the opportunity to come before you guys today. I come to you today as a lifelong resident of El Dorado, a Butler graduate, a former Educare Center employee, and as an early childhood educator that's been continuing in the field for about 11 years now. I'm very saddened to hear of the board's recent decision to close Educare. The center has received top quality ratings both at a state level and accreditation at a national level. Residents of the community may never realize the work and the length of the detail of the work that goes into achieving that accreditation. But it's something that Butler and the city of El Dorado should take great pride in. Over time, as an early childhood educator here in the community, the need for expanding quality childcare in our area continues to grow. Through talks with countless families, providers, and community partners in the area, there's not been one individual that has stated that the availability here in the area is plentiful. It's quite the contrary. I've noticed that through the community needs health assessment that was provided last year in 2019 by the hospital, it was repeated multiple times that the need for childcare here in the area is very great. Even more so, the closure of Educare further limits families in the area to only one center-based option here in El Dorado that's specifically for children ages 0 to 3. I would also like to note that according to the college's website, Educare provided operating hours that extended past the other centers' availability in the area. So I'd like to encourage the college board to consider how Educare's extended hours benefited the families when compared with the hours of the other operating center-based program here in town. Early childhood education students at Butler will now lose the opportunity, as mentioned before in the previous public comments, to complete practicum training locally at the Educare Center, something that is required of the students for their early childhood education degree. As a former student of the college, it was definitely a perk to have that availability of faculty on site to talk about things to implement in a classroom, as well as to talk about current trends that were going on in the field. Additionally, college students in general, they're going to be able to, they're going to have that loss of convenience in being able to immediately have access to their child while they're going to school. You have parents who are juggling school, even work and life in general, and being able to have that convenience, that quick access to their kids just to stop in and say, hey, that is something that will now be of a loss to the college and to the community. Closing the Educare Center is a huge disservice to both children and families. Educare is one of many businesses that have closed due to the pandemic. I would like to know if there have, options explored in being able to maintain revenue during the pandemic, because I know that was an issue of concern. Information is available online with the Office of Child Care, one of the offices with the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So I would just like to hear from the board if this or other related options have been explored as far as being able to maintain revenue during this pandemic time. And with that, that's the end of my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Tasha Tillman. I'm going to, Tasha, if you can hear us, you are now able to unmute and provide your public comment. I heard it's really hard to hear us. If the comments, so I'm not sure. Hard to hear us in this room,
Like on the live meetings. Okay, we're gonna have to speak up then.
Tasha Tillman, you are up for public comment. If you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Tasha Tillman. I live here in El Dorado. I just recently graduated from the nursing program in May. I just wanted to make a comment on what a big part Educare has played in my education. I'm a returning student. I'm in my 30s, and I have two younger children and a foster daughter, and could not find quality care anywhere in El Dorado. I had my children in a home daycare, and that did not work out well. So I went to Educare and put my 3 kids there, and had nothing but wonderful service from the staff. The teachers are amazing. My kids love going there. I was able to do my clinicals. If I had to drop my kids off early at 5:30 or 6 in the morning, I was able to do that, where other daycare facilities or home daycares are not able to do that. With it closing at 6 o'clock, that made my husband be able to go pick up the kids once he got off work, which allowed me to continue my education and allowed me to graduate from a great school with my nursing degree. There are other people in my class and classes before me that also utilize Educare. That it's such a terrible, terrible thing that that's no longer going to be available to other students and to the community. I know as I go back to work, I had planned on my oldest son just turned 5, so he graduated from preschool there. And my other 2, my foster daughter and my biological daughter, would be going back to Educare. We had planned on them going back to Educare. We were just waiting for things to open back up. We got the email about Educare closing and the emails about the things that had been going on. And I just urge you to not let the actions of one person discredit the program that Educare has. The teachers, the staff there, our kids and our community really need people like that. And I really urge you to look into, I like making a parent committee, like being able to maybe figure out different grants or funding that we are able to keep Educare open, because it's a huge asset to the community and to Butler students. And that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sammy Atchison. I'm not sure if I got that right, but you can go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Sammy Atchison. My children have attended Educare for the past 3 years, and I have 2 children in Educare. And sort of at the risk of beating a dead horse, I feel like everyone has put in very good terms what Educare means to everyone. Katie gave a very good speech on, all of the things hopefully we can do to help if it's reconsidered to be reopened. I think just talking about the benefit to the community and how vast that is and how much we need it, the education, care, and structure of Educare is unparalleled to anything in our area. El Dorado needs this service. I understand that this service is sort of outside the scope of what a college is expected to provide, but I think that makes the service all that more admirable. When I attended Butler over a decade ago, don't tell anybody, they prided themselves as a provider to alternative students. Alternative students have children, young professional families in the area, which we encourage, which El Dorado wants and encourages to be here, have children. One of the deciding factors for me working in Wichita to coming to El Dorado to work was the stellar Educare program. It was so important to me that if I was going to have kids and continue to work, there was a place that I trusted, that loved my children, that gave them the best start possible. And Educare provided that. And I really hope it is reconsidered, and I hope you lean on the parents more. I mean, don't underestimate the power of a determined parent when it comes to their children. We want to help, we want to be here. We want our kids to be at Educare. So please, reconsider, communicate with us. We're here. And we appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. And the last one I have for public comment that signed up with us is Jennifer McAllister. So Jennifer, if you want to unmute yourself.
Did that work?
It did work, yes.
All right. So I just wanted to speak with you about what the Educare program has done for my child. We adopted our grandchildren. They had a rough start in life. So Educare, we got on the list and paid money to send them there because they needed the best to get them over their life. The 4-year-old that goes there now, went there, he started when he was 18 months. The Educare team helped us with all of the needs that he had. They provided us with resources that we wouldn't have known about. They had the training that helped to get him to where he could actually learn. He's getting ready he's in the preschool program. I mean, he blows his nose now. He uses utensils. He uses napkins. He really needed that extra education. And I cannot find another place like Educare to put him in because there's just no more around. So I'm asking if there's anything that we as the family can do to help. We would sure be glad to do that, just to have that resource in Butler because we need it, all the trainings and everything. So anyway, that's what I had to say. I just wanted to tell you our story and see if there was anything that we could do. If there was any reconsideration, we'd sure be happy to help with any way we could. But I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jennifer. So that's the last public comment.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank all of you for your thoughts and comments. We'll move on to standing reports. Is Terry with us?
See you.
Looks like it.
Terry, I unmuted you if you're.
Okay. Thanks. I only wanted to note for the board that faculty continue to be engaged and supportive of the safe reopening of the campuses and classrooms for the fall semester. I don't have anything else. Have a great summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. You do so as well. Board Finance Committee report, Lance or Shelby, anybody got any report? Everything okay?
Everything's in the air and
I think
kids trying to figure stuff out.
yeah, a couple good things that.
You may have to speak up a little bit.
A couple good things. It sounds like summer enrollment is then maybe better than what was expected with everything going on. So hopefully that.
Lance, I can't hear you.
The Kent said that summer enrollment is looking pretty good right now compared to what was really expected. Revenue's kind of on track and expenses are a little lower with everything kind of being shut down right now. So that's helped a little bit from a budget standpoint. We'll know a lot more in a month when we get to the end of the year.
All right, well, thank you, Lance. KCCT, COP update, Mary, Martha, or Kent?
Hello. We had a Zoom meeting on June 6th. That's a Saturday at 8 o'clock in the morning. It was a pleasure to meet all the college presidents, or most of them, and the college trustees. Not much business went on except for the financials, our membership, what the ledger looks like. No business actions were taken. And I believe our next meeting will probably be in person this summer. Any questions?
And thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Jim.
Part of it, on the president's part of it?
Sure.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Just a couple of brief things. Lots of discussion on the president's side about funding and all those kinds of things. The governor's budget still includes the $7.5 million that was inserted for Excel and CTE, which is the career and tech courses for high school students. There's a little bit of funding on the tiered and non-tiered side, but that amount of funding in Excel and CTE now funds that at 100%, which we have not been, that program has not been funded that way before. We're hoping that that funding stream stays. We anticipate that the governor will have to make allotments probably, you know, late summer, early fall. So it's really uncertain whether we'll, you know, have the funding that we expect right now. So we talked about that. And so they gave some legislative updates as well. We talked about a couple of different education topics that we thought might end up being passed in the legislature, but they didn't get. The Kansas Promise Act, you've heard me talk about before, which was going to be tuition free, last dollar tuition free for Kansas high school students, did not make it through well, actually, it did get passed, but the governor vetoed it because they didn't tie a fiscal note to it. And so uncertain about what the cost was. And so that's probably going to come back up again, we think, in the next legislative session. So we're keeping our eye on that for sure. Lots of discussion about back to work and back to campus kinds of plans. You know, whether people are going to have their residence halls open, how they're managing face-to-face or remote classes. And so just a really good meeting of the presidents. Some discussion about the Board of Regents. One of the things that they're looking at is trying, not for next year, academic year, but academic year 2021, 2022, to try and align all of the spring breaks. K-12, all the higher education institutions align all the spring breaks for the same week in March or whenever, so that people can plan around it, because they're all over the place. So those are just a couple of the updates from KCCT.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you again, Mary Martha. Foundation board report, Forrest, anything to report?
Yeah, the foundation board met quarterly meeting in May. I think the two notable takeaways were at the request, the college had requested that the foundation look into possible ways to assist targeted scholarships at the enrollment level. So trying to, a little extra money that the folks that are doing enrollment might be able to do to push or sway someone who was on the fence about enrolling, and maybe provide that little extra nudge. And there was $100,000 from the foundation that was allocated to that, separate from the annual scholarship. So that's just some extra money that the college has to work with. Also approved the grant back, so to speak, of $135,000 in foundation staff salary that the college would normally pay for, that the foundation is going to assume that cost this year and give that money back. So just trying to help the college bottom line a little bit.
Thank you, Forrest. Kim, do you have anything else you want to add to the president's report?
Just a couple of things. You know, I sent out this afternoon, or sometime, I can't remember when I sent my emails, the return to work guide for everybody, and indicated that we're working on individual departmental plans. We talked about that a little bit in finance committee, but you know, the return to work guide is kind of an overarching guide. The departmental plans are pretty specific because the setup in all the different departments is different, and the staffing and the traffic flow and everything. So individual departments are putting those plans together for approval, and will phase people back onto campus based on those departmental plans. We're also in the process right now of restocking the PPE that was donated. We pulled that from all over campus and donated that so that it could be used kind of in our area hospitals. And we're restocking that. And then also in that return to work plan, we're going to strongly encourage folks to wear masks this fall when classes start. And so we'll make PPE available to students and staff as part of that encouragement to wear face masks. You know, we have some situations, again, like we talked about earlier, where we've got folks that have underlying health issues and, you know, are in older age groups, you know, whatever. And so we want to, and that's really what most of the community colleges, actually all the community colleges right now, the only one where they're requiring masks is Kansas City, Kansas, and that's because Wyandotte is one of the 2 counties that has the highest number of cases. So they're requiring masks right now for anybody that's on their campus. But really all the community colleges by this fall are really kind of headed towards encouraging people to wear them. So we're planning that return to work. We're waiting from the NJCAA. We'll know on the 19th of this month what the plan is for fall sports. We anticipate they'll follow the NCAA, which is that fall sports will be back in action. And so we'll discuss then as a Jayhawk conference system when we're going to bring student athletes back to campus. Summer enrollment does look good. We were worried, in March and April about what was going to happen. We had set a goal, really wanted to hit where we were last summer. Last summer, we were just over 16,000 hours, I think 16,300 credit hours. And day one, this summer, we were at 16,100. So we were really pleased with summer enrollment. Fall enrollment is still way down for all of us. I think people are waiting, to decide what they're going to do. They're probably assessing their finances and still waiting to find out. Residence hall is going to be open, what all those situations are. So we expect that will start to pick up, and we're being very aggressive about marketing low-cost classes in the 2-year system and at Butler compared to, students that were planning maybe to go to KU or K-State or Wichita State or someplace like that, and think that we'll gain some enrollment that way because they're going to be thinking about their finances maybe in a different way. And then the only other thing, and Kent talked about this just a little bit in Finance Committee, we need to see about setting a special board meeting on July 28th. Kent, is that the right date? I think it is, July 28th, for the notice of public hearing. There's a very specific time frame that public hearing notice has to be published. And so the 28th is about the very latest that we can get it done, and then hold our July 14th regular board meeting. So Kent wanted me to ask if we did a special board meeting on July 28th. It's a short meeting. That's usually the only agenda item and you just open up the meeting and announce the notice of public hearing, and it's just really short and sweet. So does July 28th work for everybody? If we set it at 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I mean, we can set it at whatever time works for you folks. And the other thing is, we could also, if you absolutely needed to, you could call in, or we could Zoom you in too if we had to, if you were traveling or it didn't. That's a Tuesday night.
I know I'm tentatively out of town right now, depending on what,
Okay.
on how I travel, but I don't know that I could join remotely.
Okay.
If you needed me to.
That date rings a bell with me. I think I'm in some depositions like in Arkansas, but I'll double check.
Okay.
Christina and find out.
Why don't you do that? Double check, kind of write that down and double check and see, and then I'll have Laura get a hold of you and find out if it works for you. Part of the, Kent's on now. Kent, you want to say anything about that?
No, just the timing is real critical. We can't really go any later than that and get it published and meet the statutory requirements. And if we try to do it, we could do it a little bit earlier, but it puts a lot of pressure on accounting to get everything ready.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll poll everybody and go from there, okay? Then that's the last thing I have. Oh, no, I'm sorry, one more thing. Because of COVID, the exec council is not getting together for our own planning retreat until June 30th. That's really about the first that we could do it. And so I need to set some planning time with you folks in July to to go through the draft of the strategic goals that, you know, that we're gonna compile as exec council and allow and have you guys create some insight and input as well. And I don't know, I know we do a work session, we'll do a work session at the July 12th board meeting. I don't know that we want to try and do the strategic planning on top of that as well. It might make for a really long meeting, but if that's what's most convenient, we could do that. Maybe we could start earlier in the afternoon. I don't know. Is your preference to do it that same day, or would you like a separate time to do it?
I would tend to prefer to do it the same day, but.
Same day? Julie says same day?
Depends on how big the agenda is that day. too.
I'm with
You know,
you.
if the regular meeting goes till.
Separate day,
What's that?
separate day, separate day.
Okay.
I can go either way.
Yeah, I'm indifferent. I can do it.
I'm indifferent as well. Either way.
Okay. Well, let me sit down with Laura. We can kind of go back and look at what the typical July agenda looks like. We can go back last year and look at that. And then we'll get in touch with you and get something figured out. Okay. I can't remember what, you know, I know there's always a budget work session, but beyond that, I'm not sure what else is on the agenda. So. Okay, help me remember that, right? Yeah.
Kim, this is Kent. I'm not sure we'll need a work session, budget work session in July because we'll actually do the budget during the regular meeting.
Oh, okay, that's right. All right, well, we'll take that into consideration when we're looking at the agenda. Thank you. That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you, Kim. Monitoring report, division report, academic support, and effectiveness is Dr. Phil.
Yep, Bill's probably on there. It was an hour. Like meeting the face. I know, I'll make
Dr.
sure.
Sperry, if you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and give us a brief synopsis of your report.
It's quarterly.
So are you ready for me?
Ready, we are.
Okay, well,
He's there. I think he's trying, are you trying to share your screen?
so, you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you about the Division of Academic Support and Effectiveness. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm getting a very strange delay of my own sound.
Do you have YouTube on, Phil? Phil, if you have the YouTube on, you might want to shut that off so it's not running in the background, and then you should be okay.
I don't think he heard you.
He's muted.
Yeah. And now your microphone is, there we go.
Okay. So, well, to tell you about the Division of Academic Support and Effectiveness, it's okay. All right. Okay.
He must be getting feedback from somebody else. Somebody's giving him instructions.
Okay, we ready?
Yep.
All right, so just one level of sound going at a time. So the Division of Academic Support and Effectiveness is a series of programs and services that you had an opportunity to look over from the board book. What I thought I would highlight is two things about the division, because I know This is a long meeting. I don't want to take up a lot of your time. But each of those programs and services in this division addresses a concern that is specifically necessary for a community college in this period to address in terms of accreditation concerns and issues. Things like testing and tutoring and the freshman transition that's provided by the personal development program, AVID and the faculty development team, which provide professional training and faculty training for our instructors, are all strong considerations in terms of a community college's viability for accreditation. Another dimension of the academic support and effectiveness division is the Inclusion Council, for instance, and diversity is considered to be a very necessary high priority now for community colleges as they approach accreditation. You also are probably familiar with the fact that our division is very involved in the Aviso program, which is intended to facilitate communication between student services and academics on behalf of students so they can promote retention and successful completion of students in their degree programs. One other thing I want to take just a couple of minutes to highlight for you is how important the role of the Division of Academic Support and Effectiveness has been in this sudden transition period of our services in general at the college due to the COVID crisis. For instance, the AVID program, which works hand in hand with faculty development, which are both parts of this division, were crucial to the very just-in-time training that faculty received during the extended spring break and going to the end of the term and now going into the summer. In terms, many faculty were not really all that tremendously prepared in advance to shift suddenly to all online instruction. And the faculty development team working with the college's AVID team, which is under the division, were very instrumental in offering all kinds of workshops that started during that extended spring break and then went on through to the end of the term and was highlighted recently by the Boot Up Camp that was participated in by over 40 faculty, so that the instruction which Butler has now been able to offer online is probably one of the best in the region in terms of high engagement and really giving the students the best possible online learning experience. One other dimension of the division, tutoring. Butler's had a very strong face-to-face tutoring program. Of course, we couldn't do that during the crisis. And so our director of tutoring, Cassie Zeiner, worked with both students and faculty to be able to shift those tutoring services to online so that students were still being able to be tutored, particularly in English and math, to the end of the semester, and now that's extending into the summer. One of the most problematic support services that college faced when we moved into this crisis was continuing testing. Pretty much all national testing services were set up depending on the fact that testing would be able to be proctored face-to-face. And so suddenly when we had to shift all of our placement and other types of academic testing that needed to be done through a testing center to remote, we were probably as ready as anybody, and the national services were not ready at all. And so working with the math faculty, the English faculty, and faculty in general, working with student services and advising in terms of the demands for placement testing, the testing administrators that are on our staff have over the past month worked it out so that now we're able to address the volume of placement testing, which helped us be able to have the strong enrollment that we've had this summer. In fact, sort of indicative of how hard we've worked, our demand for our testing center was so strong that going into the weekend before the summer term started, one of the national testing services crashed trying to support what we were trying to get done in terms of remote testing. So I'm really proud of the people in the division for how hard they have worked to make a very smooth, effective transition in this time of crisis. So does anybody have any questions about anything they saw in board book?
I was curious, what is the Wichita Indo-Chinese Center and what do we do there? Is this part of his purview?
Yeah. I don't know if you could hear Shelby, Phil, he asked about what the Wichita Indo-Chinese Center is and what do we do there?
Well, I would say to kind of help you with the context of our adult basic ed program, our adult basic ed program to some extent is financed by the college, but the majority of it is financed by state and federal grants. And one of the grants that we were approached with to see if Butler would be willing to engage with it and help a program happen in the area was the Wichita Indo-Chinese Center. In general, the adult basic ed program helps area students who weren't able for one reason or another to complete a high school credential, and it helps them make the transition so that they're then able to complete that credential and then be eligible to come into a college setting. So the Indo-Chinese Center is paid for by grant money, and it serves that purpose for particularly international students in the region, not just in the Wichita area, but in the larger region. It's an outreach to people in a fairly large area of this part of the state.
And we also have an ABE program on this campus too.
Yes. Yeah, we have ABE programming here. We have it in Andover. It really has a very far reach, but like I say, primarily it's funded by state and federal grants. We do some matching funding in terms of the most core personnel of that program, but even most of the staffing for that program is done by federal and state grants. That's the sort of thing that, like I said, it's one of the programs that really addresses community concerns and that is reflected in accreditation expectations. It's important to have service to your community in terms of helping people in the community who weren't able to complete high school to then become prepared so that they could enter into a college experience. So I hope that helps.
How many of the kids in general, I say kids, it might be adults, go on to college or to Butler specifically?
At any given time, any given year, there's at least 20 or 30 students that have transitioned through the program into going to Butler.
20 or 30 students in the whole program?
How many years at inception? Julie's asking 20 or 30 students, what's the program enrollment? And they're not in the same stage at the same time.
Yeah. Right.
You know?
I'm looking that up in the board book.
Page 7.
Yeah, well, it varies in terms of the program. The program works with individuals at the prison. It works with people that are classified as post-secondary education. It's around 100 students or so. So it's a pretty healthy proportion of students that then end up transitioning to college at Butler.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great
Any other?
information. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions? Well, thanks for letting me share with you if there aren't any other questions.
Thank you very much once again, Phil. The board book stuff is very helpful.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda, strategic discussion on the fiscal year 2021 budget.
Yeah, Laura's gonna share a document for you. Oh, and I've got a copy of it for you to take with too. This is information that I shared with employees yesterday, and is just kind of an example of, I just kind of wanted to run through this with you and show you, you know, ultimately. I'm sorry?
Who prepared this?
Oh, I did. I mean, the vice presidents, it's been multiple meetings and conversations, but I actually put this little document together. So this is information that I shared with employees yesterday because I want to give folks an idea of what we're facing, you know, this coming budget year and at least show, you know, on this document, what it looks like if we're cutting, this shows just about $3.2 million. And we're not sure, you know, we're not sure how large that's going to be, but the very top of the document is information that was presented at the March board meeting. That's part of your March board book when we did the budget update then. And of course, everything's changed since then, obviously. This is information, the information that was provided in March is similar to information that we provide usually 3 times a year. We usually do a budget update in March, you see one in July, and then you see one in October. And so that's kind of part of our regular budget calendar, annual budget calendar. And so we'll bring another update to you in July that will show, you know, where we're at kind of for year end and where we think we're headed for the next budget year. And so in March, you know, it looked like we were going to head into the next budget year with revenues under expenditures about $600,000, $607,000. And so, you know, everything has changed now. And a lot of that is because shortly after we presented this to you, then, you know, COVID hit, we started to hear more and more conversations with people engaged at the state level and in lots of different meetings about where we were potentially headed. Information shared in March, as with all of our budget updates, is, you know, is based on enrollment projections. This information presented in March had placeholders in the expenditure budget for health insurance increase, and we had a placeholder. We always put a placeholder in there for health insurance, and we always put one in for salaries, even though that whole salary discussion is negotiated. That's part of the negotiating process. And so we put that in there so that it's in there and we can see potentially what a salary increase would, you know, how it would impact the budget. And so those things were part of that March 10th update as well. And the vice presidents, the budgeting process really is kind of a year-long process. There's a lot of work that happens in the fall with the vice presidents working with their direct reports, like Lori working with the deans and the associate deans and lead faculty and digging into those individual academic budgets and really looking at them and thinking about, you know, where they spent the money the prior year and, you know, what things can be shifted around or what wasn't spent. Are there going to have to be, you know, new faculty hired to replace retiring faculty, those kinds of things. I mean, the budget discussions really are pretty in-depth. And so a lot of that granular work happens in the fall. And then after the first of the year is when the vice presidents really start to meet and start to really look college-wide at all of the information that's been gathered in the fall. Well, you know, February and March, again, was when COVID was hitting. And so everything that we typically, you know, do kind of gets thrown out the window. And as the discussions started to happen at the state level, Laura, you can move that up a little bit to the next section there. As the discussions really started to happen at the state level, from very early on, we were told you need to expect a 15% reduction in tax revenues. Whether people didn't pay them or weren't able to pay them, the counties that are really, really heavy in oil and gas are going to probably have a higher impact even. But they, you know, they were saying to us, you need to plan on this 15% reduction in tax revenues. So for us, that's $2 million. We were,
They, Kim.
well, Heather Morgan, I mean, when the presidents all get together, sorry, when Heather Morgan gets the presidents together every Friday for discussions, she's been involved in all kinds of budget meetings, and she's our executive director of the KACCT. So she can sit in and listen to the budget meetings. She's part of, you know, connected to the governor's office, listening to legislators and fiscal forecasts, and she, you know, Department of Commerce and Department of Labor, all kinds of things like that. And so a lot of the conversations were coming out of, you know, the economic forecasting groups and things like that. But we haven't heard anything different than that from almost the very beginning.
I have a quick question. If those taxes are due, but they're not paid and we don't collect them, what happens to the people that owe those taxes and didn't pay them? They just
I can't answer that
get their home
question.
repossessed and.
I don't know.
What I understand, there's about a 3-year period before they get tax options.
For folks listening,
Stay on
Shelby
court
asked
steps.
what happens if people don't pay their taxes, and Lance answered that there's probably about a 3-year time frame
Some
that they're
period of
trying,
time.
yeah, trying to collect them.
It's usually a
So-
3-year arrearage before they'll do a tax foreclosure.
We also know and are anticipating that there'll be some sort of allotment cut that comes from the state because of the state funding situation. The tax revenues, and I mean, just the economic impact of COVID on the state budget. Even though funding for us is still in the governor's budget, again, Heather Morgan and the conversations that she has with those folks at the state level has really encouraged the community college presidents to plan for worst case scenario, which she thinks would be a 10% cut. We're hoping that it's not that, but she said if you're planning your budgets, you might want to just, you know, build that in just as a worst case. So for again,
I'm sorry to interrupt. At what point do we know for certain what the state number is going to be?
we won't know. Heather said on the telephone on Friday that it might be August or September before we would know if the governor's going to make cuts. The consensus revenues, the most recent consensus revenues came in better than they thought, but they still, I don't think, hit the target that was originally expected, but it was a little bit better than they thought. And I think that they're hoping that through the summer, as the state opens back up, those consensus revenues will gain ground. So,
Question.
sure.
$3.2 million less revenue. Isn't that 3.2 million the same number for COVID assistance response? I mean, it's not the same thing, but is that the same number that we were given at some point as far as what?
How much CARES money?
Oh, CARES money.
The CARES
Yeah,
money, 3 points.
Can I answer that in just a little bit? We got 3.8 million in, but half of that went to direct student support. We had to send that, you know, kind of as scholarship money. I guess you can't call it scholarship money, but we sent 1.9 million of that was directed for student support. The other 1.9 million can be used for very defined. It can't just go into the operational budget. It goes to.
It's got ties on it?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, and some of them aren't real clear yet. So anyway. Oh, that's fine. Can I come back to that in just a little bit? Okay.
Dr. Kroll,
Yes, Mary Martha.
how much, tell me one more time, how much of that money had to be used for students?
Half of it, $1.9 million.
1.9. Okay, thank you.
And so, you know, we're planning for worst case as far as state funding. And then, and out of those 3 revenue streams that we have, taxes, state funding, tuition and fees, the enrollment's really the only one that we can control technically. And so working really, really hard to make sure, you know, we gain some fall enrollment, because any decrease in anticipated enrollment, you know, creates another level of revenue loss for us that can be significant. So
In regards to the state money, just to be sure that just so I know I heard you correctly, we won't know the money from them till August and September, and we have to vote on a budget in August.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the challenge.
Kent put in the comments that we have received cuts from the state as late as December or January.
Yeah.
Mid-semester.
Yeah.
Well, we have to cut our budget 10% or.
Yeah, it's happened before. And so just as an example, if you look at 2 million, 3.5 million. The budget that I put in front of you is a 3.2 million. This is just one of the first tiers that we have worked on. And I wanted to just kind of show you how we have put that together. Probably about, we have about a 70-30 split in personnel and non-personnel expenditures. And so this $3.2 million revenue loss is really pretty much that split. It's about a 70-30 split. It's on the personnel side and it's on the non-personnel side. And as the vice presidents and I have met regularly, sometimes twice a week, as we've worked on this, we've developed different layers with greater and greater revenue loss to try and plan. And so this is just an example of something that gives us about reflects about a $3.2 million loss. And so we looked through everything. Everybody had to go back and dig through both their personnel and the non-personnel sides of their budgets. And on the non-personnel side, that's the side that includes also utilities, contracts, service agreements. So even on the non-personnel side, there are committed funds that, kind of you can't cut because they're part of operations that you can't walk away from. And so you can't get huge dollars out of this budget by just looking at the non-personal side. There's just not enough flexibility there. So you have to look at people and you have to look at positions and there's no other way to do it. So we start, okay,
Just to clarify, the 15% decrease that you're talking about is strictly local tax revenue.
taxes, that's what they're telling us, local tax revenue.
The local, okay, who tells you that?
Butler County taxpayers, it's that. Butler
Right,
County
but
taxpayers.
who tells you that that's?
Well, that
Probably
that
what they're-
has come from conversations across just the different state agencies. Kent talked to Will Johnson, I think, didn't you, Kent? And or you talked to the finance person, and he said that that's probably an accurate figure. So even locally, we're hearing that, as well as all of those conversations that they're talking about statewide. So a couple of the big things that, from a personnel perspective, one of the things that we started off doing right away early on was when we knew positions were coming open because of retirements or resignations, we held those. We didn't just automatically post them. We have probably, I think we have 9 positions, 9 or 10 positions that have been open since, early in the year that we aren't going to fill. We've got, 8 more on the list that are on hold right now. They're open positions through retirements or resignations, but we haven't decided that we're going to fill them yet. So one of the first ways that you start to address this is through salary savings, because those folks are retiring or, have resigned to do something else. Some positions obviously have to be posted. You got to have our residence hall director resigned and moved to New York, but we got to have a residence hall director, And so there are positions that have to be posted, but you've got to look on the personnel side. And so a couple of the things that are here, and again, when we talk about employees and salaries and stuff, this all comes through the negotiations process. But we had a placeholder in the March budget update of about just over $683,000 that was committed to a salary increase for our employees. If we would freeze, and that's a 2% salary increase. And again, placeholder, if we would freeze salaries, that, we wouldn't spend that money. That wouldn't be part of our expenditure budget. our HR compensation study that we completed a couple of years ago. That was a market study of comparable salaries among community colleges or in higher ed institutions and in this area, and a market-based salary. There were some areas where we had to do some salary equity, where people weren't being paid what they should be paying. And so we had $190,000 committed in the budget for salary equity, and we're going to pull that out. We had, and this copied on both sides, if you want to flip it over to the other side and look at the rest of the personnel side on the left-hand side. We also talked about the salary savings that could come if we furloughed our salaried employees, not our hourly employees, but the salaried employees. This is about 340 employees.
How many days is that for, Kim?
This would be for 8 days throughout the whole entire year. And people would have the opportunity to choose those dates, those days that they wanted. It equates to about a 3% cut in salary. If we took a 3% cut off of their base salary, it would give us about that same amount of money. When you furlough somebody, they still have access to their benefits and all of that sort of stuff, but they would take 8 days and not work, and it doesn't impact their base salary. So if you can do furloughs, it's better than doing a cut to base salary. So we included that as well.
Are those not, this is not bargaining unit members? So this is just.
It includes everybody right now. It includes everybody right now. And so there would, there's some discussion that'll ensue along that. We put
Dr.
on
Kroll?
here oh, yes, Mary Martha?
Dr. Kroll, if a staff member is teaching and takes the furlough, we still have to pay the sub pay to replace that person in the classroom. Am I correct?
What the faculty would do would be to take those furlough days when they aren't in class.
I
They
see.
would take it so that we didn't have to hire a sub or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
We don't have those details all worked out. This is still really discussion kinds of things. But when I presented this to the employees yesterday, they were hopeful that they might know what the board's thought was on furloughs tonight, because some of them want to start to try and plan for that. So we'll come back to that in just a little bit. We put the 24 Educare positions on there. That savings between that estimate that we were going to put in there this year was $250,000. And this also represents then across the college 21 different positions, kind of in different areas. Some of these are positions where we were able to consolidate positions and realign job responsibilities, or this position maybe came open and we didn't have to fill it. It wasn't part of the March update, but we didn't have to fill it. We were able to reassign those responsibilities to that position. But this one shows 21 other positions across the college that would be impacted. And again, this is information that the budget managers, they've worked with their folks to try and figure out where we can pull these dollars from, thinking and keeping in mind, we want to protect enrollment or grow it. We want to retain our students. We've got to be able to do student success and support. We've got to match that core mission. And so it's really, really about trying to preserve as much enrollment or incent as much enrollment as we can. We know that when we cut people and we cut, things like that, you cut services potentially. So we started first looking in areas where there might be the least impact on enrollment. It also includes about $45,000 in training support, programmatic changes, things that relate to kind of professional development kinds of things, or with some of the curriculum, there's some curriculum areas where we're able to shift some classes into other degree programs and save some dollars and some things like that. So on the non-personnel side, about $843,000 that we put together as kind of the first tier. There's some facilities projects. These would be one time, they wouldn't be permanent cuts, but there was $250,000 committed to HVAC replacement in our art building. And COVID delayed that, and that has to be replaced because there's some mold problems in that building. And so HVAC in there has to be replaced, but with COVID, we couldn't get the bids and the work started soon enough to have it done by fall. And so it's gonna have to wait a year. So we're gonna take that $250,000 out of the facilities projects and use that. There was also initially some funding to help develop through our partnership with Andover School District and their CAPS program, as they were building their new CAPS building and doing the science lab. There was initially some thought that we would, because we were partnering with them in that lab and we were going to teach micro classes there for their students and stuff as part of the program, that we were going to help fund some of that lab renovation, and they've switched gears now and aren't going to do that. So we're pulling that funding back out. I told folks earlier, we're talking about asking employees to reduce their travel this coming year by 50%. And we think we can save about $150,000. That's not student travel, games and vocal music kinds of things and stuff like that. We still want our students to be able to do their events and activities, but we think we can limit employee travel. And now with Zoom capabilities, a lot of the conferences are doing face-to-face and virtual conference sessions as well. Just general budget reductions. Again, people went in and dug into their budgets, and so this may be for some general budgets. It may be their travel dollars, it may be registration dollars, it may be money that was unspent last year that they don't think that they're going to need. And so it's just all general budget reductions. And then we're also going to move in July to centralized purchasing, to start off with our office supplies, and purchase centralized purchasing, Andover centralized purchasing for El Dorado, and we think we can save probably $25,000 in just purchasing supplies if we consolidate those orders and are careful about how we do that. And so, as we look at each of the additional levels potentially of revenue loss, we'll see more personnel on the list, and we'll see more just general budget reductions. And so, a couple of the things that are positive again right now, summer enrollment is strong, and we weren't sure what that was going to be like. And so summer enrollment has been positive, and there's still that energy, even in the midst of all of this, about the need to fund career and tech education, because that's the whole workforce development conversation that's happening across the state, and the need to build that pipeline. And so we need to be really focused on those career and tech areas, because if there's funding that's going to come from the state, it's going to come in those areas. And it's not that we're going to walk away from our liberal arts education and the importance of the gen eds, but if you look at the budgets the last few years across what we get from the state and where the conversations are, it's all really around workforce development. And so, yes, please do.
Just wondering how the summer enrollment compares to last year.
I think I stated earlier, last year summer enrollment was about 16,300 credit hours. I think day one this year was 16,100. And what we did, I'm sure part of that was we went back into our research to look and see what the average number of credit hours students took in the summer, and it was just over 4. It was between 4 and 5 credit hours. And so we thought, you know what? Let's try and figure out a way to get them to take more credit hours. And so we did. We offered 6 credit. If you'll take 6 credit hours this summer, we'll give you a credit. If you enroll for fall, we'll give you a credit for 3 credit hours in the fall. And so that incentivized some of that enrollment. We're sure we don't have as many students enrolled this summer as we did last summer, but we have the same number of credit hours. So they're taking more credit hours, which helps them on their path to completion more quickly. We're also looking at, maybe some potential changes to the fall schedule a little bit. A lot of institutions are trying to finish up somehow at Thanksgiving time to get students out and away before all the holiday travel starts. And we're hopeful that we're going to be able to make some changes that will impact our fall enrollment and be an incentive for students to enroll for fall, knowing that they might be done a little bit earlier. So, this, I just wanted to share this with you. You know, what we bring to you in July may look totally different. I mean, I don't know, you don't know, but I just wanted to put in front of you an example of what, $3.2 million revenue loss looks like. And again, the key for us is enrollment. That's really what we have to try and control and be really, really focused on. We saw, surprisingly, this spring semester, everybody was worried about retention of students with the change to remote learning. Our retention this spring was higher than it was when you compare it to last spring's. And I think that that's because there was tremendous support for the students. We also, with Aviso, have early alert and teams of people that step in if we think students aren't connecting the right way and they're not getting their work done. It's kind of like an early alert system. And so our retention was higher this spring, even after all of the COVID stuff than it had been. I think it was I don't remember now, % or 2 higher than it was last spring. So that was positive. So that, I've answered questions, but I just wanted you to see an example of this. And, when we come in July again, we're making guesses basically, because we probably won't know state funding. We're going to plan on that 15% decrease in local tax, because that conversation hasn't changed. We aren't going to have a real good idea about our fall enrollment yet, because we'll have an idea where we are in July, but so many students wait until really kind of the very last to get enrolled. And so we're going to have to try and figure out an enrollment projection, knowing that we're still, 6 weeks away from the start of class. Something like that.
I just wondered, because it's going to be a kind of a subtraction in the fall, since we offered the summer incentive. But the actual student numbers, I know that you've offered the incentive and the hours are greater, but what is the physical student count? Do you happen to know?
I can't tell you right off the top of my head, but I can find that out.
Yeah,
Jessica.
for this year versus last year.
You want for summer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get that for you. Will you write that down for me, Laura? Jessica sends out an email each week and I can go back and look at that. And I actually might even be able to pull it up while somebody else is talking.
I'd like to ask a question maybe of you and your team.
Okay.
Enrollment's gone down every year for what, 5 years now, 6 years, about 7% on average?
I don't think it's been that many years, but maybe it has.
Quite a few, but how do we get the enrollment up? Because we haven't figured it out yet. And now we got COVID and.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know you're saying we gotta gain it, but how are you guys gonna gain?
Well, we've made and if Jessica's on, she's not on, okay. We've made a lot of changes in internal processes about how we contact students and how we engage with them and how we recruit them. We're watching a lot more data now than we have before. Like we talk about students in the enrollment funnel. Those are ones that have expressed interest, and we're really watching carefully. How do we move them from a point where they've, reached out and said, oh yeah, maybe I'll take some Butler classes, to get them enrolled. And so there's a lot more. Phone calls, text messages, mailings, virtual advising appointments, social media, everything. We're trying to do everything. And if you look at, and even just regular advertising, we don't spend a whole lot. People used to spend a whole lot on radio and TV advertising. People don't listen to the radio anymore. And TV advertising is so expensive. Everything is social media now.
I've seen a
Texting
lot of
these
your
kids-
advertisements on Facebook.
A lot.
Just saying, on
Yeah, you
electronic.
can
Yeah,
market
I know.
people.
Yeah.
Not just one.
Geo-fencing events, we can buy lists, for instance, we can buy, and Kelly would be able to tell you this better than I can, but we can buy lists of students, you know, high school students that are graduating, or we can get a list of students that were intending to enroll at the four-year institutions, but now maybe are not. We're going after those guys. We're gonna go after them and, you know, give them a lower cost option. So there's just all kinds of things like that, Shelby, that I think everybody in higher ed's really worried about fall enrollment, just because. I think mostly worried because of the finances, the financial impact that families have had.
I think it'll be interesting, because if I understand it correctly, typically during a recession or a downturn in the economy, we see kind of an uptick in enrollment a lot of times. And so assuming that there's still some economic turmoil ahead,
Yeah.
we may see some.
That's what typically happens at community colleges. The impact, the financial impact of this has been greater than it was in 2008 and 2009. So there's
You
concern.
do poorly.
Yeah. So,
But I
You
think
also
that,
talked
to
about
your,
reaching out to young people who may not have been so successful at the
yes,
four-year school.
and we've got the ability, we've got the ability to reach out to them too. The other piece of this also is, with all the people in South Central Kansas that have been laid off, there's a really critical need for us to be able to offer short-term certificates, short-term trainings, because they may not want to come and do a year or 2 years worth of a degree. They may need some short-term training to get in and out of here and get back to work. And so there has to be that focus. And again, it's that career and tech area that, you know, that's so vital and so critical. Those are the jobs that are out there right now. Construction companies haven't slowed down. I mean, you know, Shelby can probably tell us that your business didn't slow down at all, you know?
Not many trades are slowed at all.
Yeah, so that, I just wanted to give an update and provide some information. Laura, did you, I was gonna look at Jessica's email and see if I can come up with the summer students.
I don't get those emails.
Okay, I'll look and see if I got it.
On the,
Okay.
Kim, on the non-personnel side,
Uh-huh.
did the budget, the proposed budget that we looked at in March, did it account for, I don't want to steal Ryan's thunder, because I know he's going to talk to us a little bit, did it account for the fact that we expect insurance to go up?
No,
So the deficit here is actually really bigger than what.
Could be,
than what
yeah.
we're showing.
Yeah, no, this doesn't include the increase in property insurance.
I'm just now admitting Jessica to the meeting.
Okay, well,
Is this, was March the meeting we had in Andover? Or is that?
no, March we still met, Zoom. I think we were Zoom, weren't we, in March?
We had a real meeting in
We had a
March.
real meeting in
Oh,
March.
that's right, we did, because we hadn't closed campus yet.
February.
We are here. We are here. Is Jessica on yet?
I'm wondering, maybe a
Jesse.
question for Kent real quick, sorry. But the operating revenues, 51 grand, that's based on the, what, 2019 budget, or just kind of using that
was
as
our
a
enrollment.
baseline of where we might possibly be, but I remember us talking about that at maybe the Andover meeting.
We can't hear him.
It's based on the current year 2020 revenues.
The
Are we
enrollment,
gonna hit that? I thought we had some other numbers like where we were, I don't know. We can talk about that later, I guess.
I think what you'll see in July, you'll see a reconciliation of, you know, we'll be at the end of our academic year, so we'll have a pretty complete picture of our enrollment for this current year. We'll know what revenue losses, you know, are due to COVID and how that impacted. So you'll get an updated picture in July. It'll give us a more complete, it'll be almost a year end.
When we look at those numbers, are they the same number that's on the statement of revenue and expenditures, just a different timestamp? Basically, one was from March, one was from May.
Well, remember, these are the projections that we gave you for next year's budget, for next year's budget. What you're
This
seeing
is
on,
the actual.
that's current, yeah.
The budget part of that would have been last. basically last year's budget, okay?
Jessica is on now.
Okay, hey Jessica, can you tell us what the head count was last summer and what the head count is this summer? I told the trustees that our credit hours are about the same. We have fewer students this summer, but the same number of credit hours, but I couldn't remember what the head count was from last year to this year.
Sure, hang on just 1 minute. I apologize. I was listening in on Zoom. Let's see, so.
Day one, it seemed like we had about 3,100 students, right? This year?
Last year we had about 3,500. And this year we had 3,083. So what's happening is that the students are taking more credit hours. So the average number of credit hours each student is taking is increased this summer.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
You had mentioned, Kim, that there are the furloughs for salaried employees. Were people looking for feedback from this group on those? Or I guess
Well,
I have some concerns about how we do it, because there's going to be some legal issues we've got to wade through on how we can force salaried employees to take days off.
Yeah. Right, and I know people were thinking that if there was some thought that we would be able to move forward with that some of them might start to try and make arrangements. I mean, HR started to try and put together some processes and just talked with, you know, a little bit with legal counsel about this, but I think some of them were thinking, gosh, if I can get my furlough days in, then I might be able to access some of the stimulus dollars for folks that are laid off before those end, you know, the end of July or end of June. End of July, yeah. So I think that's what they were thinking, if maybe I would take my furlough days in July and.
Have we had an opportunity through the mutual gains bargaining to broach these issues with the representative? Are we, is mutual gains still meeting through the summer?
Yes, we have another meeting scheduled, I think, for next Monday, maybe. Yeah.
Forrest, what did you ask?
Oh.
Mary Martha, I asked if the mutual gains bargaining group was, if they were meeting and if they discussed any of this yet.
Okay, thank you.
We have talked with them we haven't met for a couple of weeks, but we did talk to them about the very real possibility of a salary freeze needing to happen because we were, you know, I mean, we just talked about it. Again, we haven't gotten to that final negotiated agreement or anything, but we felt like it was important to share with, you know, discussion within that group as well that, you know, here's what the picture looks like for us. And so, you know, we don't believe that we're going to be in a position, you know, next year to, you know, to add anything extra to the budget unless it's insurance increases.
I'd like to ask my question again, maybe better. In 2019, we budgeted 51.2 million, and our actual was 45.4. 2020, we budgeted 50.7, our actual is 45. Why are we still budgeting 51 million for next year? Why are we not running with more like a $45 million budget? That's what we actually end up with the last few years.
That doesn't include June, does it?
I don't have those figures in front of me, so I can't speak off
It
the
was
top of
that
my head.
last page Kent gave us. Or are we 1 month off of the?
That's at the end of May. I think that Ken might be able to answer. Ken, on that statement of revenue and expenditures is like the 2020, the 50,717,000. Is that a full year budget number? Isn't it?
Yeah,
Versus the 45, and we're just a month.
that's what we had in our budget to start off with.
But like in 2019, we had 51 to start and we ended up with 45. Did we end up with 45 at June and we still have 6 more coming in, or is that all we got that year?
I think when we close the books at the end of June, that number should be pretty close to 100%, won't it?
Yeah.
So next month we'll have.
The actual is reflecting 11 out of 12 months.
Yeah.
I think. that right, Ken?
Well, the budget column, if you look at expenditures, it says total expenses, 50,605,000. Also, then we have transfers that have to be added in there, about 1.8 million. So it's about 52 million. And that will tie in back to what we showed you in March. It's real close. I mean, it's not exact. Carrie's made a few adjustments throughout the year, but it's pretty close. That's the budget. Then the expenditures, you know, we're at about 4 million right now, and we are planning on being under by about 2 million or more.
Copy of that spreadsheet.
So we'll have all those figures for you next month.
Okay, I guess I'm just confused on, say, just if you look at 2019, and it says budget and actual total revenues, and we're 51.2, and then the next column under actual is 45.4. Is that because we're lacking 1 month, and then next month it'll show all the actual for the entire year, or was 45.7 that entire year versus the budget of 51.2?
Yeah, that 45 million is for 11 months.
Okay, that makes much more sense.
Did you find it? Yeah.
Well, I think we'll surely have an opportunity to discuss this more pretty quick here.
Yeah.
We have to approve the budget. I'm not trying to shut you off.
No, I didn't.
Let's go ahead and move on to the board action items, if that's all right with everybody.
Please. Yeah.
Do we want to take a quick break and let people get up and?
Yeah, if that's sure.
Want to do that real quick? Yeah, I need to see if the lights are still working. They're not asleep.
I know
Go
his
to a
are.
chiropractor at all?
Getting up. Well, it's backwards.
So you won't?
Oh.
I've never done it before, and
You shouldn't if you can avoid it. But there's a guy in Andover that's, he's a car whisperer and he's a body whisperer.
So we're taking what, 5 minutes?
Chiropractor.
5 minutes.
Okay.
5 minutes. Go out. I've never had that.
We'll be back in 5 minutes,
Seized
folks.
up on me.
Gotta take a quick break.
Okay.
How'd you measure
Hey,
that?
Laura, Julie must have, or Heather, Julie didn't get any email.
Hey, Ryan? You're muted, can you?
Yep.
I'm gonna take a quick break too. When we come back, I'll probably do a quick introduction and then just turn it over to you.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Hey, Ryan?
Yes.
So do we have the cyber policy? Do we have a firm commitment on that yet?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so the schedule I put in, I think says it's still pending, so you might want to update them on that one too.
Find out that it's perfectly good. Okay.
The people at,
When's
the
the
people at
reason
Butler
today?
County
They're kind of
courthouse on a protest taxes says, "Won't pull a permit and we won't raise your taxes." Like, yes, ma'am. Comes a licensed contractor, 5 years.
You ready, Jim?
Yep, let's get started there, Jimbo.
Okay, we're back in session. Move to the first board action item, which is property insurance. Is Kent talking about that, or do we have?
I think
Oh, we have
Ryan's
Ryan on here.
Yeah, we got Ryan.
Go ahead, Ryan, tell us about it.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, I don't have any news this evening, good or bad. I think everybody's been prepped for what we're anticipating, which is a substantial premium increase as well as an increased wind hail deductible. I did respond to an email last night. I think it was it Lori that asked the question about whether or not Butler's experience had anything to do with this situation. Yes and no. I mean, I think we were canceled by the Midwest Higher Education Compact because of our loss history. But that said, even those members still in the MEC program, they have not been given their renewal numbers yet, and they're being told to expect a 5% wind hail deductible. And when I say 5% wind hail deductible, it's 5% of the value of the building. And so when you consider Butler's property schedule, 5% per building would be over $7 million in deductibles. So not going to be a great offer even for those that are still in the MEC program. I'm hoping that we'll get somewhere. I think 1% wind hail deductible is probably a best case scenario, and 3% is probably worst case scenario. We will be able to buy a policy that can buy that down from 1% to 100,000. But when you're buying that much of a buy down, it won't be inexpensive either. So it's a combination of our loss experience and just the insurance marketplace overall has overnight turned into a hard market. And the challenge, I think the reason that we still don't have terms, we started on this at the same time we normally do. So they haven't been waiting on us. The challenge is because everybody is getting this type of news, the property underwriters, the wholesalers, they're all being bombarded with requests. So, you know, I've had a couple of our brokers tell us that they're not going to be able to get to all the property submission requests that are being given to them. So they're trying to figure out which ones they have a legitimate shot on. In our case, they know that we don't have a backup plan, so they're not competing against expiring. So we do know that they're working on ours. It's just Butler has a lot of property. When you figure all of the buildings, all of the contents, the business interruption, we're actually just under 170 million in total insured values now, which would be on the very high side in terms of what the other schools in the Jayhawk Conference have. So, lots of challenges, most of them probably related to the marketplace. But we're doing what we can. We've got probably 4 or 5 carriers that are still looking, and we may have to get creative. We may have to buy it in layers. We've got Travelers Insurance, for example,
is looking at offering the first 25 or 50 million in coverage. And of course, that's the most dangerous or risky layer, because that's the one you're likely going to get into. Then we would buy excess property policies, much like we buy umbrellas, to sit on top of that. We could also consider buying a loss limit policy. Let's say we only want to buy 100 million, or we only want to buy 150 million. Just figure what our worst case scenario might be. In terms of property values, I'm going to use round numbers here, but on the El Dorado campus, it's roughly 100 million. And then on the Andover campus, it's roughly 50 million. So I don't know if that's a gamble that the college would be willing to take, only buying 100 million or 150 million, but we're going to exhaust all options to try to find something that's palatable from a premium perspective. Ken, is there anything else you want me to share with what we're doing, or any questions from the board?
Yeah, I would ask the board if they have questions now, and then we can kind of wrap it up.
I have a question. Trustee Winslow, I have a question regarding the insurance. I was just wondering, I'm new in the board, so if this seems far out, it's just part of my knowledge base. I feel like I have to have. How many colleges, two-year colleges, are you doing at this point, or the companies that you represent? Do you have any comparison? Like, we do 10 Kansas colleges, and you know, the one in McPherson is worth 50 million, and the rest of them are 100, and anything like that you can share?
Well, so ICI as an agency only has Butler. We did insure another school for a couple of years that decided to take it local. But most of the junior colleges in the Jayhawk Conference do have local representation. And I am friends and colleagues with, I would say, 8 of them. And so we have all been brainstorming in terms of what markets to go to. And again, we're all facing similar challenges. I know what their values are. I don't know that I would be at liberty to share them because I'm not their agent or their spokesperson, but I do know that Butler's property values are higher than anyone, with the exception of maybe Johnson County.
Okay, that answers. Thank you.
Hey Ryan, this is Shelby Smith. Is the most of our liability, is that just due to the sheer amount of roofs we have? Is it mostly covering the roofs?
Well, yeah. Again, any risk in Kansas right now that has a lot of roof line or a lot of roofs are having these same issues. And following up on the last question, I mean, Butler has more than most. And as well as some of you may not know, there really were limited markets already for junior colleges in Kansas. You know, EMC wrote all of the 90% of them, if not all of them, up until 2016, and that's when they exited the marketplace. And so, you know, you said liability. I mean, the exposure is the roof line. I mean, liability coverages, we're good. We've got a good program with Trident, and that pricing is relatively flat, which is great in this environment. It's simply the property coverage itself, and because of the amount of property, the values that Butler has, it's that exposure. It's making it a little more challenging. But again, every junior college in Kansas right now is facing similar terms on the property.
Right. We just happen to have more than most colleges as far as property.
I don't know if that helps, but.
And you're suggesting, Ryan, that we go ahead and approve the insurance policy, that we do have a commitment on for all the other liability issues and that. But since you don't have anything yet on the property insurance bid, you're just asking for authority to approve that when it comes in. Is that right?
That was my recommendation, Jim. Yes.
I don't see anything changing on all of the casualty coverages, Jim. We were waiting for one other proposal from a company called Philadelphia, and they were only able to offer a handful of the lines of coverages. They weren't able to do the auto, they weren't able to do the employment practices. So we've exhausted all of our options, and I think we're satisfied with all of the lines of coverage, with the exception of property, but that's going to be a big piece of the premiums in your total program. So yeah, I would say if you guys are okay approving everything else, and as soon as we have a property option for Kent, we'll review that at that time.
Can I ask one question? Ryan, this is for us. So what is, if we have to approve, what happens on July 1st when we're not meeting again until the second week of July? I guess how does the coverage roll over between now and our next meeting, or what happens to that coverage?
Well, we have to make a decision before July 1. We have to have something in place prior to your next meeting.
I think that's what Kent had suggested potentially in your board book, the two options. And one of them was, if Ryan didn't have the numbers tonight, still authorizing approval. We know it's going to go up, but authorizing approval either, to allow us to go ahead and say this is okay and you've got to move forward. Either that, or we're going to have to schedule a special board meeting when we get those numbers in. And we know they're going up, and so it's probably, it might be as easy from a time perspective to just give Kent the authority to say, yeah, we got to move forward with this, and then inform the board, here's what it was. We know that it's going to increase, but that's certainly your decision if you want to do that or not.
But even if we don't like the numbers, our options are.
We don't have
any options anyway. So.
I think he's
that save us for a couple months. Yeah.
Yeah, hailstorm.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to have one best option. So whatever option we bring to Kent is the best one. So.
Right, and I was just going to comment that I've known Ryan, worked with Ryan on different issues, and even outside of what we do here, and I certainly trust him to do the very best he can for us. So what he finds under this volatile situation is probably going to be as good as we're going to get. That's my recommendation.
Are you looking for a motion to?
Thanks, Jim.
Let him make the call in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, so I have a motion to approve the 2021 insurance policies that have a firm commitment as they're shown on the renewal schedule in the group in the board book, and also give Kent the authority, college administration, the authority to approve any property insurance if a firm commitment is not available by July 1, I guess. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries unanimously. The action approved. The next board action item we have is the early retirement policy revision.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, Shelley was going to present this. She got a call late yesterday afternoon that her daughter was in labor, and so she drove to Texas. She has a new grandson as of 2 a.m. this morning to go along with two sweet little granddaughters, and so she's being a grandma this week. And so I told her that I would present this, at least initially, that I likely would not be able to answer your questions the way that she can. But I thought I'd at least, tell you what we're thinking and where we're headed. She sent me a little bit of additional information, but I don't know that it still will maybe answer the questions that you have. But certainly we can look at it this month, and she'll be back you know, to go through it with you next month. The college's early retirement incentive plan currently provides, and this is, keep in mind, what we're talking about here is a change to not the professional employees. Their insurance and early retirement incentive program is built within their master agreement. So if we make any kind of policy change, this is just for the non-faculty employees. But currently, the plan that we have provides eligible employees the opportunity to retire beginning at age 60. And at age 60, whatever plan they're on until they hit 65, whatever plan they're on when they retire at 60 can remain in place until they reach retirement age. And so, you know, for instance, if we had somebody that retired at 60 that was on a single plan, then that single plan would be available to them until they were 65. If we had somebody that retired at 60 that was on a family plan, then they get to elect to keep that family plan until that retiree reaches age 65. And, you know, as we've studied this, especially in the last, I think we talked about this probably a year ago and started to kind of look at it, but we have increasing numbers of folks, both on the faculty side, but on the non-faculty side, we've got a larger and larger pool of people that are becoming eligible for retirement. And this is one of the areas as we look at budgets and we look at continuing growing costs, this is an area that we're concerned about with, you know, the larger and larger pool of retirees that could potentially elect a pretty rich insurance package beyond their retirement for both them and family or a spouse or something. And so the tables that are there show the last 5 years of costs and the future retirement projections that are based just on eligible employees. This doesn't mean that all of these people are going to retire. She went back into the records and looked at ages and stuff like that, years of employment. And so this is people that are eligible. And it shows, it does divide it out among faculty and administration and off-staff folks. But you can see that over, you know, from 2015 to 2020, those benefits that we've paid, you know, have gone up. The last few years, they've been pretty much in the same, you know, kind of in the same range. But the projection in years out shows a continuing growing cost. And so one of the things that we've started to talk about is a change in the wording of that policy. If you look on page 29, a change in the wording of the policy that would still allow people to retire at 60 and have access to this early retirement incentive of health insurance. But the change in policy language would change so that that retiree, no matter what program they were on when they retired, would be eligible for single insurance until they were 65. And if they had a family member or spouse or whatever that was on insurance when they retired, then that they could stay on our insurance, but the retiree, they would have to pay the cost of that other person's insurance. So it takes away, it just basically it provides single coverage for a person that's retiring at 60 through 65. Their family member, whoever, could stay on our insurance, but they would have to pay that cost rather than us paying.
Do we know, Kim, historically, when people have reached the age 60, how many of them are still on a family plan or single plus spouse?
Let me look here and see. That may be some of what. Yes, Shelley just knew what your questions were going to be here. In FY 17-18, 24%, and I'm guessing it's probably 24% of that total, maybe 22 and 13, so that'd be 35 people. 24%, and again, I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing. 24% of those folks were on family. The next year, 28%, and in FY 19-20, 27% of them were on family. If you look at the next table, FY 21, that shows eligible people, the second table down, of the employees that are eligible to retire, 9 of them are administrators, 7 are ops staff, and it looks like, again, 77% of those administrators, 7 of them, are on family insurance right now. 71% of ops staff are on family insurance, so that's 5 of the 7. So the bulk of them are on family plans that are in the administration and the ops staff categories that could retire, that are eligible to retire. And so she went back and recalculated numbers. Her numbers are a little bit different than what you see in your book, but if policy changed, FY21, and this is going to include faculty too. So if we change to a single policy coverage for folks, it would be for just administration and ops staff, and they did single coverage. There's about 141,500 dollars in savings just by changing to that single coverage. If 9 people in administration retired and 7 people in ops staff section retired. So there's a significant savings over time that this change would create. It wouldn't go into effect right away. We would need to give people a year.
Is that
Yeah, the plan would be probably that it would go into effect, not this current budget year, because people need time to plan. So it would go into effect the following budget year. So 2021, 2022 is when it would start to take effect.
But there wouldn't be a grandfathering process. Folks that might be 2 years into their retirement already would be affected by this with 1 year's notice?
No, I don't think so. The folks that are in it right now would stay in their plan. It would
Just new
start,
retirees.
it would start with the brand new people that are retiring. Yeah.
They no longer get coverage at 65, is that the cutoff?
Medicare.
It seems real good at first, but then I had a thought just hit me, if you were like 5 years out, and it's like, well, if I can stick it out for 5 more years, I'll get, $2,000 a month worth of insurance. They might not want to retire and take it early if they have to pay out.
Sure.
Most
Yeah.
likely won't want to.
Well, and there's a lot of people that continue to work because health insurance costs are so high.
Well, yeah.
Anyway, I mean, not just here, but just in general.
Just in general.
Well, there are people that have jobs, it's just that they're in healthcare.
So, we'll put this back on the agenda. I don't expect you to make any kind of decision tonight, but we'll put this back on the agenda for July when Shelley's here. And think about it. If you walk away from here and you've got questions, let me know and I'll pass them on to Shelley. She'll be gone. I think she's going to be in Texas probably for the whole week. But I'll pass them on to her and she can bring back. We'll talk about this again next month, but think
But
about
all
it.
of the administrators and ops staff, if they are eligible for a family plan, they get that as a condition of appointment.
You can elect that. Yeah,
But I mean,
am I?
in the teachers, in the faculties, that they're entitled to a full family.
If they want it, sure, yeah.
And so administrators and ops staff are also entitled to a full
Everybody
family.
is, yeah.
So
Yeah.
so most everybody's gonna be a rollback.
Yes.
Anybody that retires
Yeah.
that has a family will be a rollback.
Yeah, and the language in the master agreement, I don't have that pulled up there, the language in the master agreement is just a little bit earlier. They can retire a little bit earlier than 60. I think their retirement plan starts maybe at 57. I don't even know how to explain it, what the right word is. There's a certain percent that, that they gain in coverage the closer they get to 60. But
anybody who retires that has a family will be rolled back on their coverage.
Anybody would roll back to single coverage. Their family members could stay on the plan if they wanted to, but they would have to pay the difference.
The coverage wouldn't change, just the premium split would change.
Right.
Yep,
So like
who's
right
paying
now,
the
we
bill?
pay 100%.
Who's paying the bill would change.
I think it might be a good way to keep older teachers around.
Is it as simple as if the single coverage costs $7,500 and there's an employee with a spouse, that they would pay the $10,000 difference? The employee would get whatever the benefit for the 7,500, but they would pay the difference there.
Yeah, that's my understanding, yeah.
Is this something that we need to have before we vote on it, legal counsel vet out if there's some issue with doing something like this?
Shelley may have already talked to Alyssa. I can't think of Alyssa's name. Bob Overman was our employment
Right.
person. Alyssa.
I'd like to know if that's been
I'll-
vetted out.
we'll ask her.
I don't want
Make
any
sure.
lawsuits.
Yeah.
Later on.
No, we'll, Shelley probably has talked to her, and I just don't know that for sure.
Question.
Pass that one.
Do you have a question, Mary Martha?
Yes, of all the employees that have retired or selected to retire in the last, let's just say 2 years, how many did not select insurance and maybe went with their spouse?
I don't have an answer to that. I don't know,
What-
but Shelley might be able to tell us.
Okay, I'd just like to know, I mean, how many are staying with us and how many are leaving?
Okay.
Thank you.
Be able to get maybe some of that information where even of those that, even though they're eligible for it, aren't even currently using the college's insurance because they have it available somewhere else.
Sure.
I mean,
The ones, employees, current employees?
like when we look at these numbers,
Oh.
how many of those may not even be using college insurance?
My guess would be that this is reflective of people that are currently on our
Okay.
insurance. Yeah.
We could pose some questions, all of us, to Kim, and she could pass them on, and then maybe
Get a response.
Shelley could answer before the next meeting.
Yeah,
I've
that
got a
would be
few
really
others
helpful.
as well, I'd like to ask.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Okay. I encourage everybody to do that. We're gonna go ahead and pass that board action item, then we'll move to the next one. Certa Welding Certification Program.
I think Lori's gonna talk about that. It has.
Hi.
Kate Krause.
Hi,
Lori.
everyone. This is Lori. We have put together a kind of a subset of our current welding program because we sometimes have students that need to step away at the end of one semester rather than doing the 2-semester welding format. And so because this certification is more than 15 hours, it requires KBOR approval. And so this is adding no new budget needs to the college. It is just taking what we're currently doing. And if we need to have a student needs to step away at the 1 semester mark, they actually can leave with a certificate rather than just leaving the college with 19 credit hours on their transcript. So it's under the same zip code. We have one full-time instructor who teaches in this area, and he sometimes has students that need to step away, and he wanted them to walk away with a certificate. Are there questions?
Lori, do you anticipate people would just sign up for this right off the bat, not as a step away, but plan all along to just do it and get a certificate?
There may be a handful. We haven't really had this option, so we haven't marketed that or put it in the catalog so the students can be aware of it. So we may see an increase in interest in this. He's had a handful of students over the last 3 or 4 years that have had to step away. And he said he regretted not having a formal certificate available to them.
And I may have missed it, Lori, because I was looking at some insurance stuff, but any certificate that's more than 15 credit hours has to go back through that process of approval at the KBOR level. So we can't just
That
put
is
this.
correct. That
doing
is
it.
correct. I stated that at the beginning, so. Mhm.
So what kind of certificate, I understand CERTA, but what kind of certificate would this be good for as far as the job market? Is it evidence that there were 15 hours or something similar? test?
Well, there are employers that will hire students with these particular set of skills. It's not the entire welding curriculum, but they will take an OSHA 10 course. They will have a course that is overall welding methods. They will take a course in blueprint reading. They'll do the cutting processes, and then they do arc welding, tungsten arc welding, and metal arc welding. And then they have one course in the oxy-fuel gas welding. So if they're going to be doing any kind of welding in those particular areas, there are job opportunities for that.
To some degree, Lori, is it again as simple as they have a certificate of completion of a program versus an employer that they may be talking to that they say, you know what, I've got some hours in welding from Butler, but I don't have any completion. Is that?
That is a benefit for the student because they can say, I did get this certification A that was available through Butler. Again, most of our students are going to probably stay because we've laid this program, the AAS, out so that they can do all of the welding courses in 2 semesters. And then they have 15 general education courses, 15 credit hours in general ed left for a 3rd semester. And a lot of them, if they go the 1 year program, they're going to finish their gen eds either by taking it online or taking a night class here and there because they're wanting to get into the workforce.
And Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, that these courses, where they earn the industry recognized credentials is when they're finished up with gas, metal, arc welding, and they get the GMAW. Those designations are the important things for them when they go to work. Those folks want to know that they've completed that level and have that in those welding areas. And so that's really what this certificate does, is help pull all of that together so that they have that industry recognized credential that they've completed that level of training.
And their transcript from Butler would show that they completed this certificate, not just.
I move that we approve the CERTA welding certification program as presented.
I second. This is Shelby.
For the first and the second, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay,
Mary Martha's a little bit delayed
That's
there.
okay.
But
Motion carries. Recommended actions approved. That's all the board action items. Now I have a consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Supplemental information, Kim, is there anything we need to discuss?
nothing really, just, again, as we've done each month, there's some reports on the strategic initiatives. The calendar at the back, the very last page, we may try to have, I'll kind of see what construction's like. Either in July or August, we should have our board meeting over in Andover again. The east parking area is all torn up and being worked on right now. And so I'll kind of see where they're at for next month, but we may either in July or August meet over there, but I'll let you know for sure. So. And we got moved out of the 6,000 building. We're completely out of there. I meant to tell you my president's report, went to the Andover school board meeting last night and just offered public comment and told them thank you. We've been in that high school space since 1992 and, just thank them for the, great partnership and collaborative working relationship. And even though we're going to be in different buildings, still working, excited to work with them and provide great opportunities for their students. So.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say
Aye.
Bye, Mary Martha.
Thanks, Mary Martha.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.